All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you have watched my content for any amount of time, you will know I am a huge proponent of synthetic sleep systems. And that's because I have been in the backcountry on late season goat hunts and had down systems fail and cost me an entire hunt. Well, I have a new down quilt that we're here today to test. This is the Stormloft quilt from Outdoor Vitals. And I'm gonna get into the nuts and bolts of why I think this down quilt might perform better than previous down quilts I've had. But we are in beautiful British Columbia. It is March 13th right now. It is about -7 degrees Celsius, and I'm about to go jump my ass in a river over there, submerge head to toe, and then come back to my shelter and see if this sleep system can dry me out. So just to go over the gear, we have Stone Glacier Dehavilland pants, forged in the backcountry socks, forged in the backcountry boxers. We have a marsupial sun hoodie and Outdoor Vitals hybrid fleece. And then we are rocking the Exped 7R down mat pad. And here is the Outdoor Vitals quilt. And I'm gonna get into one small modification that I've made on this quilt. Originally, the foot box was too small for me. I did not like how cramped it kept my knees. So I took it into a local seamstress, and what I've done is opened up the back and had them put in a zipper so I can get a little more movement. This is the 15-degree Fahrenheit long version of their quilt. So I'll cover everything else in more detail. Right now, I gotta go jump in a river. All right, I'm just trying to get as much of the bulk moisture off my body as possible before getting into the sleep system. Yeah. I'm not gonna bother with puffy pants. All right, so now what we're gonna do is a series of checks every 30 minutes. And we're gonna do a physical check and a moisture check. So I'll check in with Noah, make sure I can think clearly, talk clearly, not slurring any words, no hypothermia, I'm doing okay as kind of like a baseline. And then we'll go through some of the base layers, see if my base layers have started to push moisture out to my mid and outer layers. This puffy will start to get wet before it starts to get dry. My hands aren't super numb. I have decent dexterity. So yeah, that's the plan. Get some warm liquids in, get some warm food in, and then really lock this tent down, try and keep as much of the air inside as possible, and then tuck myself in as tight as possible to this quilt. My daughter, when she found out I was coming to do this,
yeah,
she's like, "Are you gonna come home?" Yes, I will come home. Well, I'm still alive. By the way, I'm in a Durston X-Dome 1 right now. This is the first time testing out this shelter. Love Durston shelters, and I think this is probably gonna be my go-to backcountry mountain hunt shelter. We jumped in the river probably 45, 50 minutes ago because I came back here, got squared away, did some cooking, and then once I closed the door, we took a half an hour break. I am significantly colder now than when I shut the doors. And I think it's important to talk about this because if you're not prepared for this, it could get you to start worrying. What happens is when you first put on your dry puffy and your dry sleeping bag, they are super dry and they are providing maximal insulation. And so it warms up your body. Then as the moisture starts to get pulled out of your core and into your mid and outer layers, their ability to provide insulation decreases and your core gets colder. This is the hump in the middle. This is when you have to stay in your sleep system. Zip everything up fully, lock it down, close all the doors, and conserve as much body heat as possible. It's super clammy, it's very uncomfortable, it feels cold, you start to get worried, but if you can get over this part in the middle, and the amount of moisture coming out of your system doesn't completely overwhelm your system, you're gonna be way better on the other side. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm cold, but I'm not concerned. See all the loft that's still in this quilt? I'm super impressed. Like, there's moisture on top of the quilt, which is showing that the moisture is coming through the quilt onto the top. Now look at my jacket. There's zero. It is completely wet out. There is no loft here whatsoever. I also did not put on a pair of puffy pants. Originally, I changed my mind at the last minute because I want this to kind of be an example of a worst case scenario, early September sheep hunt, where you fall in a creek, it's super cold. You probably don't have puffy pants on that hunt. So I wanted to be true to the hunt that we were going on, the hypothetical hunt. Number two, I went back and forth about whether or not to wear my boots. I decided eventually to not wear the boots because I think you can gradually dry the boots out once you protect your core and your system. But the boots are going to bring so much moisture into the system, they might be that little bit that kind of just puts you over the edge. I think with a second pair of socks, you could rotate socks while wearing the boots and slowly pull out the moisture. I also think you could boil a liter of water, pour it in your Nalgene, and then put the Nalgene in the boots, rotating every 5 or 10 minutes, and that would slowly heat up the boots and gradually pull the moisture out. Also, walking with wet boots won't kill you. You will still be able to walk out, whereas getting hypothermia might kill you. So this is almost like just prioritizing the activities that are going to have the greatest impact on my survival. The last thing I want to touch on, there's kind of two phases to the testing that we're doing today. Phase one is, can I survive? Will this down quilt dry me out enough to get me through the night? Then it's daylight the next day, I could pack up and go home. Phase two would be, am I able to continue to use my body heat throughout the night to get enough moisture out of this down quilt that I am able to stay on the hunt and actually dry out all my stuff and not have it be like a catastrophic loss to the hunt? I got two different stories I'm going to tell. One, where my sleep system saved me and the hunt, and two, where the sleep system saved me, but it was unable to save the hunt. And that hunt is kind of the inspiration for this testing right now, because ultimately as hunters, we want to do whatever we can to not only survive, but also to stay on the hunt. So trying to find the lightest system that is possible of saving both me and the hunt is the ultimate priority. I can already feel just having this door open, it's way colder in here. So I'm gonna lock myself back down and then we'll come back and do another check-in. I zipped myself right inside the quilt this time, all the way up to the neck, and I definitely warmed up a little bit more. I'm gonna take a little look. Okay, so base layer is basically dry. Inside of the fleece is dry. I'm assuming the grid fleece is still wet. Definitely can feel my socks are still soaking wet, and the pants and the bottom of the pants are still soaking wet. I think it's starting to generate enough heat now. As long as I keep kind of my whole system locked down, I'm getting to that point where I'm starting to push some moisture out. Probably 2 hours since we jumped in. Definitely start to dry up top. Rest of the pants are still pretty dry. The socks have started to dry out pretty significantly. The major takeaway here is staying as tightly wrapped up in the sleep system as possible. Even if I just have my arms on the outside, I notice I will instantly start to get cold shoulders, and it's just not generating the same amount of heat in the sleep system. So I'm gonna make another hot meal, try and generate some more temperature from the inside out, and then get back in the bag. That one's still wet for sure. Yeah, up here is dry. Under the armpits are still... This is interesting. There's definitely a difference between getting rain wet and what happened there. Like, this is so fundamentally soaked. I'm noticing it's taking a lot longer than it would typically take.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting in a puddle anymore. Yeah, like that's bone dry right here. This part is bone dry. That's 4.5 hours, and we're gonna call it for today for a couple reasons. One, I think we got enough data to make some really interesting conclusions, and two, I think we would need an overnight to really find out the final results, and we just don't have that much time today. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna kind of arrange myself. I'm gonna get out of here and I'm gonna start stripping off some of these layers, and we're gonna try and record how much moisture is left in some of these. Puffy jacket, still pretty much completely wetted out. Like, this is not providing a whole lot. The open face fleece is definitely pretty dry. So you can see this whole top here is dried out. Back is still wet, bottom still wet. Now the pants are wet, definitely some moisture's come out of them, and socks still pretty wet. However, here's what's truly interesting to me. Obviously, wherever I was on top is quite wetted out. An insane amount of loft still in this quilt. I was very warm inside. Obviously, there's still some moisture in the layers that I'm wearing, but a lot of moisture has come out. So I'm gonna change because I'm already starting to get cold, and then we'll talk about some of the final conclusions and maybe some more future testing that we're gonna get into. All right, another day in the books. We made it safe and sound on our way back into Vancouver. I want to give a little wrap up. Before I do that, I want to give some context, because it might seem a little silly to jump in a river and then draw some conclusions about what that says out of your sleep system. But what I was trying to do was artificially replicate a real world circumstance that I've run into multiple times. And I want to give two quick examples. So 3 years ago on a late season goat hunt in January, I got caught in an insane amount of like slushy snow, drenched to the core. I was experimenting by using a down and synthetic quilt at the same time and layering them. That's a topic for another conversation at a later date. That sleep system became completely overwhelmed with moisture. I was able to make it through the night, but it was a catastrophic end to my hunt. I had to wake up the next morning, pack, and leave. My sleep system, you could have wrung the water out of it. And on paper, that system should have worked. It was a 20-degree Fahrenheit down bag paired with a 50-degree Fahrenheit synthetic bag. Now, the second example, last August, I was on a solo goat hunt. Again, got caught in the rain, didn't have my rain jacket on me, got back to the tent, completely soaking wet, only had a 50-degree Fahrenheit quilt. I was able to make it through the night just like that, just by the skin of its teeth. That sleep system held on like with its fingernails. Had my puffy jacket with me, the whole 9 yards. Finally, and then the next day I was lucky enough that the kind of sun broke through and I was able to dry that system out. But these situations happen for real. And up until now, I have never had a down system that I felt was capable of drying you out from like a catastrophic wet out, which is what jumping in that river was supposed to replicate. And I will say, even though it was only 4.5 hours, and even though there was still some moisture left in my clothes, I can tell you, having dried myself out in a sleeping bag dozens of times, I was right on the cusp of turning the corner. Like, I was comfortable, the clamminess had gone away, probably 60% of the moisture was gone out of my clothes. If I'd have been able to stay in there for another 2 to 3 hours, I think I could have gotten all the moisture out of my clothes, and another 2 or 3 hours after that, I believe my body heat would have pushed all the moisture out of that down bag. I was blown away by how much loft was still in that bag, considering how much moisture had come out of my clothes and through that bag. Now listen, I am not gonna say carte blanche, all down bags and quilts are capable of surviving a catastrophic wet out. My thesis at this point is that it has more to do with how overstuffed the quilt or sleeping bag is than the actual quality of the down or the treatment of the down inside the bag. So I want to do some more testing on this. But that was an Outdoor Vitals quilt, a 15-degree Outdoor Vitals quilt. I do feel confident you could use that in any situation and it would dry you out, and you would be able to keep hunting. Even if you had to sleep in it a little bit damp again the next night, your body heat would eventually dry that out. So I'm gonna do some further testing with some other bags and try and fine tune that thesis a little bit more. But incredibly enlightening day, learned a ton, kind of had fun, kind of scared the shit out of myself. It was a hell of a day, but stay tuned for more as I just keep testing and try and learn as much as we can.